The Brewers sit 1.5 games back of the Cardinals after losing the weekend series. And I just have one question. Can we please make sure that Albert Pujols signs those documents at the end of this season? Just somebody make sure of it. Can we get a witness in there? Just make sure he signs the papers, okay?
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning. Happy Monday. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. This is Locked On Brewers, your only daily podcast, Monday through Friday, dedicated to the Brew Crew all season long. As we mentioned in the tease, yes, the Brewers fall 2 out of 3 games against the Cardinals. Not a massive traditional recap, as you could tell by the title. Today, we are joined by The Athletic's Katie Woo. And Katie obviously been covering the Cardinals all season long. Wanted to get overall reactions, a look from the Cardinals' perspective of what the Brewers have been doing at the deadline, how this weekend has gone, how they're feeling about the rest of the season, and that Katie shares my belief in that this division is far from over. Yes, you're 1.5 back. Yes, you got the Dodgers coming to town next. But as we saw last season, it's not over until it's over. Just ask the Cardinals. And if you want to say, oh, this team doesn't have it, this team, we were saying the exact same thing on September 5th last year about the Cardinals after Daniel Vogelbach hits a walk-off grand slam. Little did we know that they would rattle off 17 wins in a row a week after that. You just don't know. There is still a month and a half to get hot, and that's exactly what Craig Counsell's sentiment was after yesterday's game. I don't want to be overly critical of Craig Counsell, but I think one of the biggest, I wouldn't say error or mistakes, or maybe it was something we didn't know, but just puzzlers of leaving Taylor Rogers in yesterday to face Albert Pujols, who hit the decisive blow. Now, mind you, don't forget that Dylan Carlson had already hit a home run in that 8th inning to expand things. And in my opinion, when that homer was hit, we saw a shot of Peter Strzelecki starting to warm up, a right-hander. I was a little surprised that Brad Boxberger wasn't getting up, but at the end of the day, it probably comes down to the fact that the Brewers were trailing and that they are on this stretch of 31 games in 31 days. They don't have an off day until next Thursday. So trying to keep bodies fresh when he can, and given the Brewers are already trailing, he probably didn't want to use Boxberger in that situation. But I would have had at least any righty ready against Albert Pujols, whether it was Strzelecki, whether it was Williams, or whether it was Boxberger, because Trevor Gott is now on the injured list. I just would have rather been beat by a righty doing against the book against Pujols, and then also force Oli Marmol, who would probably go to his bench and bring in a left-hander. Katie and I talk about that here in just a little bit. I look at this game yesterday specifically. It was a hell of a baseball game, just like Saturday was a hell of a baseball game, and Friday was a hell of a baseball game. I don't think either team necessarily lost the game, but the teams that won it, if that makes sense. It was a fact of, Friday, you tip your cap, Jordan Montgomery. Brewers have had trouble with left-handed starters all season long. They showed some fight toward the end with the triple by by Urias, and he scores on Caratini's single. Caratini had a 3-hit game. Yes, Eric Lauer gave up 3 runs, but they were just 2 mistakes. He called it the worst changeup of his life on the home run to Arenado to make it a 3-0 game, and Brewers obviously fall in that one. But then you look Saturday, what an incredible contest, getting no hit into the 7th inning. Corbin Burns was dominant and tremendous as well. And then Hunter Renfroe with the clutch go-ahead triple in the 10th inning. Urias with an opposite field homer to tie things. That was an incredible game. And yesterday, we witnessed history, man. Maybe we just saw Albert Pujols' final multi-homer game of his career. Did it come at bad timing? Of course, from a Brewers fan perspective. What an incredible atmosphere at Busch Stadium, and I know it'll be an incredible atmosphere against these Dodgers this week. A massive week, a 4-game set, and their winning streak is over. They lost yesterday to the Royals. They got shut out, so they had won 12 games in a row. They've only lost 5 games in their last 40 contests, which is insane, but it's a tall task coming up this week against these Dodgers. So Katie and I are going to talk about the series that was, look around the league and look around the wild card race right now. But before we jump into that, I want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. It's the fastest and easiest way to find your network and beyond, with the largest network of over 810 million people that are job seekers just like you and me. You can add your job on LinkedIn Jobs with the easy to find, it's a purple hashtag hiring frame. And you can spread that word easily so everyone can know that you are trying to hire. And they have tools like screening questions and prioritizing the right skills, highlighting the right candidates to help you find who you want to interview faster. It's why LinkedIn Jobs is rated #1 by small businesses in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And they want to help you find them faster than ever. Every week, more than 40 million job seekers are visiting LinkedIn, and you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. Again, that's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB, and you're going to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Without further ado, Katie Woo from The Athletic. In honest reaction to when the ball left the bat for the second home run for Pujols. We obviously knew it was gone, but was that the loudest roar of the year at Busch Stadium?
You know, the last couple of weeks have had some of the most hearty and intense fan reactions. That certainly ranked right up there in terms of just fan. I don't even know the right word to describe it. It was like a crescendo of sounds. Because, I mean, Albert Pujols has this sound off the bat. When he gets a hold of a baseball, it's a sound that's unique, I think, to the sport. And Cardinals fans know it. Cardinals knew it. Brewers knew it. Certainly everyone in that stadium, riders included, knew that was gone. It was just, I think, an electric postseason kind of vibe for the Cardinals. That's how it's been for them over the past couple of weeks. Certainly one of the more loud home runs for and all around that we've seen there.
It's been quite the couple of days for the veterans, with Wainwright carrying a no-hitter into the 7th inning on Saturday. Obviously, Pujols with the 2 home runs yesterday. But when you look at this lineup, we saw Dylan Carlson provide with a clutch home run. Tyler O'Neill kind of reinserted himself with another home run. And I look at, he didn't really do much previously leading up to this series, but Tommy Edman had a couple of good games as well. You're getting contributions up and down your lineup, but is that why the Cardinals are on the run that they're on right now?
You know, I think it's interesting that you point out Carlson and Tyler, because those are 2 guys, stellar in the outfield defensively, but 2 players that have really been scuffling, going through it. Tyler really ultimately all season with various injuries. Dylan's been slumping a little bit over the last 3 weeks or so during a time where the Cardinals have been seemingly firing on all cylinders. So for Dylan and Tyler getting that production in the top of the lineup, a spot that's been a relatively weak spot for the Cardinals, I think that was huge for the team. But really huge for 2 guys that are so imperative for their success going forward. When you look at the Cardinals, it certainly seems like since the trade deadline, they've been a different club. You can see it in the clubhouse. You can see it just in conversations and how guys interact, even with reporters. I really think their trade deadline acquisitions and getting Jose Quintana and Jordan Montgomery, along with having Yadier Molina back from the injured list, really rejuvenated that clubhouse. And I think that's what's kind of led to this more consistent and confident play from the Cardinals that really just wasn't there in the first half.
And you mentioned the trade deadline. I do have to ask. I've said on this podcast, I'm done talking about the Hader trade, but I have to talk about the Hader trade. What was the Cardinals clubhouse reaction when everyone over there saw across the ticker Josh Hader has been traded to the San Diego Padres?
You know, the Cardinals they're pretty insular, I would say. I think they were so focused on their dire need for starting pitching, because that's been a need for them really dating back to last season, that it didn't matter what any other team did, because they would still have such a glaring problem if the front office did not address the rotation. We've seen Adam Wainwright and Miles Michaelis. Brewers fans got a taste of what they look like, on their great days. That's two guys, for as dominant as they are, cannot carry a rotation throughout what should be a very thrilling later part of August and September. It was very evident the Cardinals needed starting pitching. So while I think the Josh Hader trade was surprising, I really do think everyone in that clubhouse, the mantra was, it doesn't matter what any other team does, because we have a need that is so imperative to our success going forward, and it has to be addressed. Otherwise, what's the point in being here? So certainly surprising. And you can see the Brewers made trades at the 2021 trade deadline that were very much win now. Cardinals did not. That's how the Brewers won the division. I don't want to overreact to one series. When you look at the way these two teams have played each other all season long, 8-7. This is the first time that a team has won a series all year. They're very evenly matched. But when you look at how the trade deadline was approached, Brewers went with the win later route. Cardinals went win now, and that can make or break a division that's been expected to be so tight since opening day.
and it's going to continue to be like this. And I know a lot of folks are freaking out about this coming stretch for the Brewers where they face the Dodgers. 7 of their next 10 games are against Los Angeles, and obviously just finished up with the Cardinals. But I look later down the schedule for the Cardinals, and I know you're about to face a ton of Central and a ton of weaker opponents right now. But I look at that late September stretch where you got 3 in San Diego, 3 in Los Angeles, and 2 here in Milwaukee, where that's coming up later. The Brewers obviously have the Dodgers now. You've got the Padres and the Dodgers later. I know the team's going to say, oh, we're looking one game at a time, but
absolutely, the cliches.
This is your opportunity kind of to maybe make some space with the Brewers.
No, I think so too. When you're looking at where the schedules are relative to each team, I'm looking at the Cardinals calendar on my wall right now. I mean, they have the Rockies for 3 days. They go to Arizona. They have the Cubs, 5 games in 4 days. Really, their only tough series for the rest of August is a 3-game set against Atlanta at home. But it's funny you bring up that SoCal stretch. When we were looking at the 2022 season in April, I was looking at it with my editor, and we were planning trips throughout the season. I went straight to September, and I highlighted that week. And I said, there is absolutely no way that we can skip out on the San Diego, LA, Milwaukee swing, because that I think is going to really kind of define where the division stands. I can see the NL Central really going until the final day of the season between these two teams. I mean, again, they're so similar, but when you look at strength of schedule, it goes right now to the Cardinals' favor, but that's a brutal 10-day stretch in the heat of September for the Cardinals that I think, they're obviously aware is coming, and I think it's going to be super important.
They do have an off day going from Los Angeles to Milwaukee on a Monday, and then they have an off day leaving Milwaukee, heading back home for Pittsburgh. But then the Cardinals are going to head right back on the road for the final 3 games in Pittsburgh. 6 in a row against the Pirates, and I know the Pirates are the Pirates, but they get to play spoiler. It'll be interesting, but that's in September. We got to talk about the actual weekend. Can you help me out with Brewers Twitter of when I was giving a compliment to Adam Wainwright in Saturday's game? They were calling him a bum off the street, and this is ridiculous. Adam Wainwright's been really, really good this year, and I know he struggled against the Brewers aside from Saturday, but what have you seen from Wainwright, and is this going to be the end for Wainwright like it is for Pujols and Molina?
It's funny that you bring that up about Wainwright struggling against the Brewers, because after his last start against Milwaukee in Milwaukee, I pointed out, I was like, hey, your 2 shortest starts of the season have come against Milwaukee, and he cut me off right there. He said, thank you so much for the reminder. And I said, well... I think, I don't like to think that maybe I motivated him at all. He doesn't need any motivation from me. But what we saw from Adam Wainwright, that was certainly a stellar version of Waino, but he's been that consistent ace for the Cardinals really for the past 2 seasons. And I think it's easy to discredit him from an opposing fan base when you just look at the velo, right? The fastball velo is 89. He's not going to dominate the radar gun by any means. And you look at his age and you see he's turning 41 this year. And you're like, how does this guy keep doing it? Well, that's what the Cardinals are saying, but they're saying it in a way that where they're so pleased because he really has been able to be the workhorse of this rotation. He has not made any decisions about 2023 as far as playing or retiring. I really think that if he feels healthy and his body says he can pitch, that, why would he hang it up? But it certainly has been fun to watch Adam dominate a rotation again. Once again, this rotation was supposed to be headlined by Jack Flaherty for the 2nd year in a row. He's been hindered by various injuries. So for 2 guys, Wainwright and Michaelis, who's coming back from missing the last 2 years with his own injuries, that's been really cool to see from a St. Louis fan base perspective. But Brewers fans, I get it. You look at the radar gun, you look at kind of his overall pitch makeup, and you're just like, how does this guy keep doing this? He's been doing it for quite a long time. He even got some Cy Young votes last year. So,
I mean, shoot, at this rate, he might get a few more this year, too. And my favorite note about Wainwright is the fact that he's never won a Cy Young, but he's just the perfect caliber of what you'd expect of a Cy Young. But because of his best dominant years, he was anchored with Chris Carpenter and those legendary Cardinals teams. Of course, he didn't even pitch in 2011, and he still doesn't get a Cy Young after all that, and he obviously won't get one this year. But it's a tip of the cap is how I tweeted it, and it's one of those things. I feel like, when Derek Jeter was retiring, it was like, God, I hate you, but tip of the cap. That's how I feel about watching Pujols, watching Wainwright, watching Molina. It's like, gosh, we know we have to give them a gift on their retirement for the last game here in Milwaukee, but at the same time, being in the heat of a pennant race, I don't want it to have a smiley ceremony right behind the plate. Speaking from a Brewers fan perspective, you guys have seen a lot of that this year already.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it kind of just transcends what they've done for the sport. Obviously, from a division standpoint, I mean, Brewers fans, Cubs fans are probably like, oh my gosh, finally, no more Yachty. And they probably had the same reaction, like, seriously, Albert's coming back. I don't know if you can quite say that about Wainwright, but I do know the Cardinals will be very happy when they no longer have to face Corbin Burns. Unfortunately for them, that looks like it's going to be a problem for the long term. I mean, Corbin Burns is Corbin Burns, Cy Young winner, one of the best pitchers in the National League. Cardinals have not been able to figure him out at all. Their best outing against him in 3 chances was Saturday. Scored 1 run. Didn't really look that encouraging. And I think if I'm going to pinpoint one weakness about the Cardinals, and I'm interested, Dom, to hear your thoughts too, it's they've really struggled to put together a lethal offense, or even really a formidable offense at that, against the right-handed aces of pitching staffs of playoff teams. And call me crazy, but I feel like if you want to be a playoff team, you're going to have to do something against the ace caliber pitchers. And it usually ends up where they score 1 or 2 runs. That's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, and I look at these two teams are mirrored, right? Where the Brewers struggle against left-handed starters and the Cardinals struggle against right-handed starters. You guys have probably, and I say you guys like you work for the team, you work for the Athletic, but the lineup that the Cardinals rolled out Sunday, I mean, against a left-hander, I am so impressed with what Aaron Ashby did for his 6 innings against that lineup of, obviously Albert Pujols tags him for his first at-bat. That is a veteran against what is technically still barely a rookie. That's exactly – it's easy to forget Aaron Ashby. That was only his 20th big league start on Sunday. And
See,
he's out there
I totally forgot that, because I feel like he's always just been in that conversation when you think about the Brewers and their pitching. It's kind of easy to forget that Ashby can factor right in there.
Exactly. And to your point about do they need more offense, and the Brewers just went through this at the trade deadline, maybe there was some left-handed bats that you could have acquired that would make things a little more interesting from facing a righty. But then at the same time, it's like, well, where are you going to play Jock Peterson defensively over what you have with Nootbaar and with Carlson? You would find a way, and obviously this is assuming that Bader is out of the question, so you would put Carlson in right field and Nootbaar probably in left, or O'Neill in left. You figure out a way with Jock to fit in. I don't see Gallo fitting in with the Cardinals. Maybe it would have worked out given the Brewers are about to face him tonight here Monday night against the Dodgers. But the Brewers are in there. The Brewers and Cardinals kind of have that same thought. Like, well, when they're facing elite pitchers, what do? And I always come back to the thought, like, well, they're elite pitchers for a reason. I mean, they aren't. It's not like you can just say, oh, they're supposed to get 3 runs off this guy. You can see it. You've seen Corbin Burns for 21 innings now, and he's allowed 1 earned run against the Cardinals. If it was that easy, everybody would do it.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is the Cardinals offense that sure took its lumps in 2021, but I think is a remarkably better offense this year, even with guys like O'Neill kind of underperforming, Dylan Carlson scuffling. Tommy Edmonds really had a slow second half, but the Cardinals offense has really been paced by 2 guys in the heart of their order, both building their own compelling MVP cases. It'll be really interesting to see who pulls away in terms of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. But this is still a Cardinals offense with sneaky pop. They have Paul DeYoung back. He's really looked impressive since his return from his demotion to the minors in May. And you're looking at guys that they have off the bench, like Nolan Gorman, who starts again, of course, against righties most of the time. And then you have guys like Albert. I mean, you see what he does against left-handed pitching. He's hitting over 300, over a 900 OPS in the role he was signed for St. Louis. So it's funny how these 2 teams, Cardinals and the Brewers, marry each other, like you said, and the glaring strengths and weaknesses in both of these teams kind of seem to be polar opposites.
Real quick jump in here to tell you about BetOnline, one of our most loyal sponsors here on the Locked On Network. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find your favorite sporting events and all the news that you need at the #1 source for odds, lines, and games, betonline.net. You can find reviews and news of every single league. Major League Baseball, NFL preseason's happening right now. The NBA Christmas schedule leaked yesterday. The Bucks are playing in Boston on Christmas Day. No surprise there. NHL is right around the corner. Combat sports, esports, even golf. They're in the playoffs right now. Everything you could want to know about sports betting is available at betonline.net. You can head there today on your desktop or on your phone to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline is where the game starts. And when you mentioned Pujols with a lefty, more on that in a second, but glaring opposite too, we saw Gallegos, who's been a strong reliever for the Cardinals, struggle on Saturday in extra innings. Now, the extra innings are weird for everybody. I get that. And Gallegos has been really hot and really cold at times. And when he came on last season, I remember when the Cardinals came to Milwaukee, though Daniel Vogelbach walk-off grand slam off of Alex Reyes, Gallegos was pitching in the 8th and 9th and actually handed it to Reyes before that walk-off grand slam. And we were walking away like, they're done. That guy's done. Gallegos, that's the guy they put all their marbles in, and it's not working out. Now he's been a completely different pitcher. And that leads me to Ryan Helsley, the all-star. I was texting you on Friday. Has he always been this nasty? And 102s on both Friday and Sunday. He's become maybe one of the best relievers in the National League that nobody talks about because of the haters and the Diaz's and the Williams. Helsley is filthy.
No, Hellsley is. It's interesting to compare the Cardinals bullpen. I mean, Giovanni Gallegos has been so dominant against right-handed hitters, is striking out guys at over 40% rate. His problem, and this is not something that has been really that something he's experienced throughout his career, has been left-handed hitters. He has not been able to get lefties out consistently, and opposing teams are noticing that. And when you're a guy that's been so dependable, I honestly think the Cardinals overused Gio last year because they were losing so much faith in Alex Reyes. But when you look at Gio, his struggle, I mean, the slugging percentage left-handed hitters have against Giovanni Gallegos does not bode well for success. That is something the Cardinals are really going to have to figure out, because for as dominant as Ryan Helsley is, and we're going to get to him, trust me, he has yet to pitch 3 consecutive games this year. He's coming back from 2 surgeries and a major injury. Cardinals have been cautious with his usage all season long. So we were talking to Ollie Marmol Sunday morning before the game, and he said, I'm using Helsley in 2 games. I got to figure out which games I can use him. I can use him for 2 innings on Friday and lock up a win and take my odds with Burns, knowing like there's no guarantee that in the 9th inning that we're even in a win situation, which is ultimately what happened. That way, if he uses them, he has 1 inning on Sunday, which is what worked out. But it puts, I think, more emphasis on Gio being able to be less splitty and more consistent against left-handers. But back to your point about Ryan Helsley, he's always had the ability to be this filthy. This is the first time in his professional career he has been fully healthy. And I think that pays dividends into his ability to go out there and execute. The command is so much better. He's always had the velo. He's always had the 102. He's had a couple of 103s this year. The command used to be spotty. He wasn't healthy. He wasn't able to really propel himself all the way. Cardinals lost him in August. Right around this point last season, he got knee surgery, was dealing with some elbow pain, comes back and is absolutely lights out. I mean, when you used to have Ryan Helsley coming in the 9th inning, I don't think any opposing team wants to see that. It makes his usage and the way that the Cardinals are a little bit constrained in using him, I think puts a little bit more pressure on Gio going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how Ollie Marmol uses those 2 in the pivotal weeks coming.
All that's missing really is the trumpets. I mean, he's been lights out against the Brewers.
We got to get him some music like Edwin Diaz, because that is the best. That is just like the best walkout in baseball. No argument.
It's so fun. And like we talked about it when Hader was traded. I've had a few folks tweet to me like, "Oh, why don't I remember anything about Hader?" Well, he did use Hove 2 years ago. H to the is, O, V to the is A. But then this year he changed it, and I was like, "Oh, it's not quite the same." It still uses Jay-Z songs. Jay-Z's favorite artist, but Diaz still takes the cake. And I learned this week that Mariano Rivera didn't actually pick Enter Sandman, that it was chosen for him. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit.
Wow. Interesting. I didn't know that. I like it better when he picked it. So I'm just going to pretend you didn't tell me that.
Well, I mean, I like Edwin Diaz, that he picked it, he know it, and now the artists are loving it. Anyway, this isn't a Mets podcast. But
but we got to give him his props.
Yeah,
Edwin Diaz, great choice.
Great choice. This has been the big moment from this game, from Sunday anyway, was the fact that Taylor Rogers stayed in to face Albert Pujols. I was shocked. How shocked were you that they kept the lefty in with a righty in the bullpen ready to go to face Albert Pujols?
I was so shocked that I texted former athletic writer for the Brewers, who is thriving with Diaz, with the Mets now, Will Salmon, and I said, just to pick your brain, why leave Rogers in there? Why leave a left-handed pitcher against Albert Pujols? I mean, we referenced the stats. You looked at what he's been able to do. Cardinals signed him for that specific role, to do damage against left-handed pitchers. So I did find that perplexing. We didn't have a Brewers writer over there to ask questions, so I will have to wait and read the wonderful Milwaukee writers from .com in the paper to figure out why. But I thought that was a really perplexing move. You're almost asking for a 443-foot home run in that circumstance.
And reading into the quotes, Todd Rosiak was the only full-time beat writer in attendance for the Brewers. And It doesn't sound like there was a direct question asked to Counsell about why did you leave a lefty in there, but the way that Counsell said was made mistakes and mistakes hurt us, and that's kind of the answer I was expecting from Craig Counsell, which, his Counsell is very good with the media. He knows every statement is pointed, and he's not going to put blame on anybody, but he knows when a mistake was made, and that was certainly a mistake, and I would argue that it's a big mistake in that like you said, that's what his one job is. Listen to these splits. I mean, you put it in your gamer as well. If folks who are listening haven't subscribed to The Athletic, what the heck are you waiting for? It's the best. But lefties versus lefties, Albert Pujols, coming into the game, 338 average, 958 OPS. Coming into the game against righties, 178 average, 602 OPS. We're not managers, Katie, but that seems pretty obvious.
Right. And I mean, you can make the argument that if Counsell puts in a right-handed reliever, Cardinals go to their bench for Nolan Gorman. I'd still, from an opposing standpoint, take the rookie in that situation than the guy that had just hit a 688th career home run. But that's baseball. I know Cardinals fans felt like they had one get away from them Saturday. This was a series that could have gone either way. And I know that with only 4 games between the two remaining, very weird that it's just two-game sets, one at Busch Stadium, one at in Milwaukee. Every game matters. I mean, every game has mattered since their first showdown in April. But I think these series almost feel a little bit like playoff series because the implications could be a playoff berth. I don't know about you, Dom, but I really think based on the National League wildcard teams in contention, I see that on your whiteboard behind you. Very, very nice handwriting, by the way.
Thank you.
That I don't really think that there's any guarantee that the loser of the National League Central between the two makes it into the playoffs, even with an expanded format. I just don't think so. You can make the argument that the Phillies have a disadvantage going against the Braves and the Mets in their division. That's a pretty solid one. Padres, they have a Dodgers problem, and they have a little bit of a lot of a Fernando Tatis Jr. problem, but they're a very good team and they spent way too much money, which I think should be applauded. Go ahead, make your product better, make your team better. I applaud owners who do that, but they spent way too much money to not make the playoffs. I really do think that the reason this division feels so imperative is because if you lose it, you might as well not even make the playoffs at all.
And the amazing thing about San Diego is they do all of this. They go nuts, and I'd be shocked if it changes, but they're still not going to they're still going to be hosting a 3-game series. That's it. They'll be going on the road for a 3-game series against Atlanta. They will be on the road. They won't even have home field advantage. You'll have to go face Charlie Morton and Max Fried and maybe Spencer Strider, whoever they want to go.
He is
oh
electric.
My gosh, we're going to talk about awards here in a second, but San Diego goes nuts. And the only saving grace for Brewers fans right now is that they're rooting for Josh Hader to fail, which I hate that personally, but that's the only way they're going to feel better about this trade. With San Diego doing what they're doing, and you're thinking, oh, cool, they're playing well, they're a good team. Yet, they are still not even in the stratosphere. They are still 14 games back of the Dodgers.
And it's incredible, actually.
That's insane to me.
It blows my mind just thinking how this National League playoff picture could play out. I mean, I'll be honest, I was pretty against the expanded playoff format. I was also against the universal DH. I was wrong. I was wrong about both. I admit it.
Well, hand up. It's all good. Welcome to the light.
Thank you. But I think it's really interesting to see how all these teams that are right around where the Cardinals and Brewers are in terms of record and overall games over 500. I mean, there is no clear cut minus the Dodgers and the Mets. And I mean, the Braves are going to be in there. Those 3 teams have it locked up, but all those other spots could ultimately go down to anyone else. And I think that's going to be really intriguing and this is good for the game, shape up for a very exciting September. Hopefully for Cardinals' sake, one that they don't need to win 17 games to be in playoff contention again.
Agreed on that. And about tiebreakers and about the standings right now, a big thing that's helping the Cardinals is the fact that the Brewers do not hold a single tiebreaker either over the Phillies or over the Padres. However, the Cardinals still have a chance to be split with the Padres, but all they got to do is win 1 game in San Diego to claim that tiebreaker because they swept them earlier in the year back at Busch. So you've got that going in the schedule for the Cardinals going right now. And when you look at, as you said, the strength of the schedule obviously favors the Cardinals in the immediate future. They still have that big road trip lurking at the end of September. But the way things run right now, it in my opinion, yes, it's a game and a half, but it's truly the Cardinals' division, in my opinion, to lose right now. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's one I would agree with. And this is the one that the clubhouse, their Cardinals clubhouse has been very adamant. Nolan Arenado has said multiple times, I've never been a part of a division title in my career. I would like to win a division. Isn't that shocking? He said that, and I was glad I had a mask on because my mouth kind of dropped because I forgot. I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. But I do think it's their division to lose. And I think when you look at the trade deadline, again, to reference that, the moves made by each team, it's pretty evident. Like the Cardinals made moves to win that division. The Brewers made moves to be sustainable long term. I think if the Cardinals go and fumble and especially stumble out of contention in September, it's just a major disappointment. And I think every guy in that clubhouse feels the same way. Their expectations are division at the minimum. And I do think that and the way the teams are trending right now, again, their Cardinals still have 48 games remaining. Milwaukee, 49? Plenty of baseball left, but I do think it is looking right now like the Cardinals division to lose.
Let me ask you a hypothetical.
Okay.
The way that Milwaukee would win the division is because the Cardinals do blank or the Brewers do blank. What, in your opinion, would be the only way the Brewers would come back and claim this division?
So I think it will come down to ultimately two things. The Brewers have always had the pitching, right? They've always had the starting rotation. It speaks for itself. They haven't necessarily always had the offensive consistency. The Cardinals have been hindered, and especially in the first half, by a lack of consistency in the rotation. They've been plagued by starting pitching concerns and staying healthy. I mean, Wainwright and Michaelis, we've discussed. Dakota Hudson, they're going to skip his next start and try to figure some things out. This is a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery. It's what made those acquisitions in Montgomery and Quintana so important. Cardinals also believe they're getting a healthy Jack Flaherty back as early as September 1st. Flaherty's supposed to start his second rehab assignment on Tuesday with AA Springfield. He's set for at least 2 to 3 more. And the belief is that he'll be able to rejoin the rotation as a starter. They were always going to bring him back as a starter. They were just hopeful they'd have enough time to do so. It's certainly looking like they will. They also think they could get Steven Matz back, who, talk about a guy that's had a really unfortunate season, misses about 2 months of the season with a shoulder problem, comes back as lights out against the Reds and suffers a grade-3 torn MCL against his final batter in his first start back on the IL. But he did not need surgery. Certainly felt like he caught a break there. And the Cardinals and Mats believe he could pitch again this season. So I think the way that the division shakes out is if the Cardinals have a massive implosion rotation-wise, or the Brewers suddenly get super hot at the right time. I know a team that did that last season, snuck into the postseason that way. That's what makes baseball so exciting. You play 162 games just for really the last 30 to matter so much. So we'll see. I know I said that it's the Cardinals division to lose, but these two teams are so evenly matched. We'll see.
And the thing about Matz that scares Brewers fans, he's left-handed. That's really all you have to say.
Left-handed. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence Cardinals traded for 2 left-handed starters?
I agree 100%. John Mozeliak knows what he's doing.
he's sometimes a step ahead of us.
It's going to be a very, very fun final month and a half or so here. I kept you longer than I said I was going to keep you, but
all good.
Thanks for hanging out, talking some ball with us here on the Brewers side of things. Yes, it's a game and a half, but to the Brewers' perspective, it feels like 11 and a half. But I think the Cardinals know as much as anybody, this thing ain't over until it's over.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals feel like it's like a quarter of a game. So isn't it funny what happens when you're on top versus when you're trying to be on top?
This is going to be a heck of a week. We will see you guys again in September, which is just a weird thought to think like, all right, well, this was an intense 3-game weekend, and now see in a month, and things could be very, very different by the time the Brewers and the Cardinals meet up again back at Busch Stadium in mid-September.
Absolutely. It should be a fun one. Don, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to connecting with you in about a month or so.
Sounds good. Broken Bat Brewing is on me, and we will hang out, get some soft serve in the American Family Field press box. It's all good. Thanks, Katie.
That's really all I look forward to. Thanks.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.